Hey, it's Jeremy with Civitas Law Group reviewing Legally Blonde today. With that, we're in session.
I'm able to recall hundreds of important details at the drop of a hat. Hey, Elle, do you know what happened on Days of Our Lives yesterday? Why, yes, Margot, I do. Once again, we join Hope in the search for her identity. As you know, she's been brainwashed by the evil Stefano.
So I can see already why my application to Harvard was rejected. She looks way better in a bikini than I do. So, or maybe I should have went with green. Pink is a little over the top. Okay, or it actually could have been that I never applied to Harvard. But anyway, and I don't think that application would get even reviewed, a video. I don't think they do a video interview. But honestly, I don't know what the Harvard application process is like. I don't talk to a lot of Harvard attorneys. The couple that I actually know, to be straightforward with you, I kind of think are douchebags. So don't end up talking to a whole lot of Harvard attorneys. So not sure there, but I do know that had I applied to Harvard, I wouldn't have recorded myself in a bikini. So that probably is a don't as far as Harvard applications are concerned.
The seat you have picked will be yours for the next 9 months of your life. And those of you in the front row, beware. The law is reason free from passion. Does anyone know who spoke those immortal words?
Okay, the law is reason free from passion. Yes, I'm getting a little off topic from the law here, but I've got to wax philosophical for you for just a second. Aristotle said that, but it's a lie. Okay, because the law is written by human beings, politicians. And are we actually trying to say that politicians are free from passion? It's not, right? They're not. And therefore, also, it's argued by human beings. It's judged by human beings. And therefore, the law is not in any way free from passion. Not in practice, not in writing, none of it.
Elle Woods.
Oh, actually, I wasn't aware that we had an assignment.
So, fun fact. Something like this happened my very first day of law school, and they asked the student that this happened to, didn't you watch Legally Blonde? And we all kind of laughed. Haha, it's so funny. Yeah, you have assignments to read your very first day of law school. And earlier here they said pages 1 through 48. That's not very much as far as law school is concerned. One of my classes, it was a constitutional law class. I think it was averaged 80 pages assigned per day, and that was one of the classes I was taking at the time. I think I was taking 4 classes. So that was 80 pages per day. That one was really heavy. Typically speaking, you're maybe reading, 10 to 30 pages per day per class. And then a lot of times people will get with a friend and say, hey, I'll do these cases, you do those cases, and they'll write briefs and then they'll exchange briefs, and so that everybody knows kind of what happened during the writing. And then there are other students that'll actually go and buy briefs or get online and read briefs of the cases rather than actually going through the full, a case might be 5 to 10 pages. So they'll skip the 5 to 10 pages and read the synopsis online and take notes on that. Not always a good idea, but hey, in a pinch, it's a whole lot better than being whatever Reese Witherspoon's character's name is and not knowing what on earth they're talking about.
Would you support my decision to ask her to leave class and to return only when she is prepared?
Absolutely.
Now, Miss Kensington, did diversity jurisdiction exist in this case?
No.
Okay, so we're talking about some real legal topics. That's not that surprising. But what I had to actually talk about here was that I don't think, look, I didn't go to Harvard. So maybe that kind of thing happens at Harvard. I've never once heard of that kind of thing happening at any other law school. Leave the class until you are prepared to discuss the subject of, to discuss the material. Never once heard of anything like that happening at law school. Once again, maybe it does happen at different law schools, but not the ones I went to. They're discussing subject matter jurisdiction and diversity jurisdiction, so it looks like we've got a civil litigation class here. Those are both questions to see if you can get a case into a federal court. Diversity jurisdiction, if I remember right, I don't practice in federal court very much, but you have to have the plaintiff and the defendant are in different states, and the amount in question has to be $75,000 or more. If I remember right, that's diversity jurisdiction. At any rate, so we got some real topics.
I'm Elle Woods, Miss Bonafonte's attorney. And I'm here to discuss the legal situation at hand.
Come again?
Do you understand what subject matter jurisdiction is?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Well, due to habeas corpus, you and Miss Bonafonte had a common law marriage, which heretofore entitles her to what is legally referred to as equitable division of the assets.
Come again?
Okay, so Reese Witherspoon again. I think her name's Elle. Anyway, whatever she is in this movie, she comes up and claims to be an attorney. She's already committed unlicensed practice of law, which in law school, that especially in Harvard, if somebody hears about that, she's getting kicked out just for that. I didn't know anyone personally. I heard secondhand accounts of my law school and other law schools of law students claiming to be attorneys and even not trying to represent people in court, but trying to represent people to a police officer, like say walk up to a cop on the street and say, I'm an attorney and I represent this person when they weren't. So that's pretty legit. And then she goes off and rifles a whole bunch of legal terms that really don't mean anything for the situation here. Habeas corpus, the right to hold the body or to hold the person, is the essentially telling the state you don't have a right to have that person confined in prison for such and such reasons. And she's trying to convince this guy to give her friend the dog back because of a marriage situation or whatever is happening here. It's family law of some kind, I think, and has absolutely nothing to do with habeas corpus or subject matter jurisdiction or any of it. But she just rifles off some legal terms to confuse this guy, and it looks like it actually is going to work. Anyway, total unlicensed practice of law, gonna get her kicked out of Harvard if anybody found out about it.
Excuse you, you're in my way.
She's a law student. She can't defend you.
Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court ruling 3.03.
See? Thank you, David.
Counselors, approach the bench.
She can't represent him. I don't know what law it was that they just cited. I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm not going to look it up. But a law student is not ever going to represent a defendant in a murder trial. Now, if you think a law student isn't going to represent somebody in any situation, that may not necessarily be true. There is actually rules in certain states, Arizona is one of them, where law students can represent people in certain situations when being properly supervised by a licensed attorney. There's a motion that you can file, maybe even a partial license. But any rate, a murder trial, that ain't one of the situations. That is never going to happen. Yeah, it's Hollywood. But then they try to cite a law and make it sound like it's an actual fact. It's not. Also, if you're going to fire your attorney in the middle of a trial, the judge is probably going to determine whether you even actually can do that under those circumstances. If an attorney's on a case, he has to motion to withdraw from the case. He'd have to inform the court, hey, I've been fired. I've been told not to work on the case anymore. She doesn't want me to represent her. File a motion to withdraw, and the judge is going to have to rule on that. And more than likely, they're going to want a paper motion on copy or on file, especially for a situation like this where you're in the middle of trial. They're going to want to document it to say, yeah, if I'm letting an attorney go at this stage of the process, I need a really good reason for it. They're not just going to have a sidebar like they're about to do here and then determine, oh, yeah, it's okay. This law student's going to represent him, so we're fine.
Miss Wyndham, what had you done earlier that day?
I got up, got a latte, went to the gym, got a perm, and came home.
So, okay, she starts her questioning off with basically like, hey, tell us that day when you saw the standing over the body, or go straight to the heart of the issue and then tries to backtrack to go, oh, tell us what you did earlier that day. Number one, she'd never be asking questions she didn't know the answers to, because those questions could in fact hurt her case. She doesn't know what this witness did earlier that day. She's just trying to generate something, just pull something out of thin air. So you'd never be asking questions that you don't know the answer to already. But in addition to that, if you did, you'd probably start earlier in the day and go through in chronological order all the way through the events and then finally end up with the scene.
How many would you say?
2 a year since I was 12. You do the math.
You know, a girl in my sorority, Tracy Marcinko, got a perm once. We all tried to talk her out of it.
Objection, she's testifying. She's not supposed to testify, right? If she needs this information for the jury, she's got to call a witness to tell them about it.
Chutney, why is it that Tracy Marcinko's curls were ruined when she got hosed down?
Because they got wet.
Objection, she doesn't know anything about that. Okay, so Elle now is asking her about an event that Elle just established, but this witness wasn't there for it. So why on earth would she even know anything about that? So she might say, have you had an experience with getting a perm wet before? And what happened when you got the perm wet? So you could go that direction, but not this one that we're looking at right here.
And then wouldn't somebody who's had, say, 30 perms before in their life be well aware of this rule? And if, in fact, you weren't washing your hair, as I suspect you weren't because your curls are still intact, wouldn't you have heard the gunshot? And if, in fact, you had heard the gunshot, Brooke Wyndham wouldn't have had time to hide the gun before you got downstairs, which would mean that you would have had to have found Mrs. Wyndham with a gun in her hand to make your story plausible. Isn't that right?
Is what part right? Objection, compound. Okay, because she just asked like 15 questions in one, right? So what she was doing wasn't actually all that bad, with the exception of the fact that she didn't allow the witness to answer anything, right? You could give her some yes or no's in a row and then get to the actual, the smoking gun question there at the end. You couldn't have possibly been in the shower, could you? Right? But establish it by asking the yes-no questions in a row before you get there. But basically, she just asked 15 questions, so the prosecutor would have objected. The judge would have said, yeah, you can't do that.
You, however, had time to hide the gun, didn't you, Chutney? After you shot your father.
I didn't mean to shoot him. I thought it was you walking through the door.
Order, order. Order.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Oh my.
Again, asked a compound question there just before getting the response that she was looking for, but the dadgum prosecutor would have objected to that one too. So that would have been stricken from the record probably.
Into custody, where she will be charged for the murder of Hayworth Wyndham. In the matter of the state versus Brooke Wyndham, this case is dismissed. Mrs. Wyndham.
So the judge just essentially told the bailiff that this lady's going to get charged with a murder, and also we're dismissing this case. Nobody has motioned for dismissal, for starters. Is there going to be a motion for dismissal if a crazy situation like this did occur? Yeah, but somebody's actually got to ask for it. The prosecutor could go, no, we're still pushing forward with it. We think we got our person, and we think her testimony, the witness's testimony, is the result of all of Elle's insane questions, or whatever it is. They could still try to push forward. So yeah, the judge just throwing a case out like that, no, probably not. And in addition to that, just ordering this person be taken into custody. Charges start with with police. So if there are police present, which there usually are in a courtroom, they could make an arrest at that time. But the judge ordering her to be arrested and charged with a crime, I've never heard of that, and not happening in this state, not in Arizona. All right, so Elle goes on. She graduates from Harvard. I think there's a sequel to this movie, so I'm assuming she did, in fact, pass the bar and become a lawyer, or maybe that whole movie's about passing the bar. I don't even know, never seen it. But that's Legally Blonde. Hope you enjoyed it.